Hey everybody, welcome to Playbook by Laserforce Loveland. This podcast is a platform for laser tag players to geek out about strategies, stories, and ongoings in the Laserforce scene, and for you to join us as another player at the table. My codename is Mischief. I'm a player from Loveland, Colorado, who loves to talk about tag. Tonight I am once again joined by the Fear Turkey / Bagel from Loveland, Colorado. Welcome, buddy.
Thanks. Welcome. It's time for part 2.
That's right. We're back.
Get your blinders on. Time to take a nap.
Loveland story part 2. We had gone all the way from when our site was inducted into the Space Marines 5 scene, and we are going to pick up right after Loveland hosting West Coast Tournament in 2022, all the way through us winning Laserforce Internationals 2024. So, Josiah, where were you at after West Coast 22?
I was pretty committed to the strategy. At this point, we had decided that we were going to do a soft rebuild and focus on putting resources into people who wanted them. And it was cool getting to play some laser tag with Jarrett, play some laser tag with Izzy. Most of my team was not super present throughout the entire event, and that was pretty tough. But it is what it is. It goes how it goes.
Absolutely. Dude, I was reflecting today because we recorded the first episode of this last night, and I was thinking all day just different things where I was like, oh gosh, we should have talked about that. We didn't talk about that cool memory or that game or that player. If there's anybody who was a huge part of our journey that has not been called out, I apologize. I think there's so much so far that ultimately has to get left on the cutting room floor, and there will be more of that tonight. But I'm making an intentional effort to call out the people who helped us along the way leading up to Nats here, because starting from this point,
Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff, and many more. They're
So
at
many
this
more.
point. At this point, right after West Coast, I think that's when a lot of things began to shift. I think that's when I initially made the folder in my Google Drive, Loveland Wins Nats, and we began having discussions about how are we going to do this when the opportunity comes for us to host internationals. The Auckland, New Zealand had dibs on Nats that next year, and you were locked in quicker than I was, I think.
No.
Talk a little about that.
I was absolutely not locked in before you. I played. So we played the duos tournament, right? When did that happen? Was that also 2023?
That was a little before
Auckland, right?
Auckland, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So as far as going to Auckland Nats, I was pretty sure I wasn't going because of all of the COVID stuff. There was just a lot of unfortunate situations going on where the finances didn't really add up, and I was just not gonna go. But then I got a sweet message from a guy named Sweets, and he was like,
fun.
"Hey, dude, I would like to play some laser tag with you." I was like, "All right, Nolan, I'm gonna try as hard as possible for you." So he helped me make it happen. He and Applesauce, and I was super blessed. I got to go and hang out in Auckland, but I don't know if one of the conditions for you playing with them was that I played too, but I was already under the impression that there was a team formed and they just needed one more.
100%. I think the team was, Beans, Cody, Applesauce, and Sweets. And I was not planning to go. I think at this point in my career, I was focused a lot on graduating from college and trying to get through my grad program. But, um, we're skipping over duos slightly, but this all this was us planning to go to Auckland. I was not planning to go because it was an incredibly expensive trip. But to be honest, the FOMO got to me. I was having a really, really miserable time being burned out with my job. And when you were locked in to go, I pretty much had a screw it moment, like a YOLO moment. And I decided I will regret not taking advantage of this opportunity. And I was like, I just messaged and asked if I could be that sixth player. And they were very welcoming of me to join the team. I think it is worth mentioning for maybe like my journey's sake. I really wanted to play on US West, and most of the players on that team knew it. But that was probably it was kind of a double hit to my ego, already losing that West Coast. I did not make it out for the St. George tournament, where I think a lot of that team began to form. And I totally get it. Everyone on that team was deserving of their spot. And I can definitely understand that I probably wasn't the best option for that team. But because I had been thinking about wanting to retire anyway, not wanting to continue playing grueling over Nats, that felt like one of my big opportunities, maybe my last opportunity in my mind, to actually win in away Nats. Not making that team was a really big blow for me. And there was definitely a part of me that wanted to go out and try to prove that they were wrong not to put me on the team. So out of all those elements combined, I jumped on board.
Hard to argue with the results, man. We took fourth.
We took fourth. Before we talk about Auckland, let's talk about duos.
That tournament was fun. It was all of the players that were on the list for the A team had to go pick someone else and play with a player that wasn't on the A team. We kind of set a standard. I think the only two A team players that played together were Bromley and Loki.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was continuing our rebuild. Me and Ghost played as well.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think he was on the list yet, though.
Yeah, I would say so. We began forming an A team, and you can see my screen here. So this was, he was totally on the A team right away. This was like our early iteration. There was a lot of me on Resup, Sergeant Tucker on Scout, Ghost Scout, Brahmatized Heavy, Simply Okay Commander, Dr. Feelgood Ammo, and you would have subbed in there somewhere. We were still very much trying to boost up the other players that weren't us, getting them the experience we had gotten over the years. Having them put the carry pants on, bear some more weight. And that was part of the intention with duos. We wanted us to not have super stacked duo teams so that we would have to play hard games.
I had a great time. Me and my bubble buddy Judoku.
Yeah, Judoku. And a lot of the future B team players were there as well, getting hopefully some good mentorship from the A team players. Judoku seemed to get a lot out of that.
Sergeant had the highest win rate.
Yes, they did.
They played really well.
Yeah. How was the duos from your perspective?
It was a good time. I was playing with Judah. And Judah at that time had a lot of bad habits that we kind of talked about. And there were some transformative conversations too, right? Like he has he has a knack for being able to find really weird angles. He has almost no depth perception. It's terrible. So, like, figuring out ways that he can participate in the game without putting himself in places that he's not going to succeed was kind of the big goal for the event, right? How do you do things your way? What is your style? What are you looking at in yourself to be able to play the game and also be having a good time? Because at that specific point in time, I think Judah he wasn't like terrible, but he definitely was having a lot of games where he would just like die because he would get caught in a bad spot, make a couple of mistakes, and then suddenly it's over. Go from like 10 lives to 0. And he was super, super passionate about trying to like find the right ways to do stuff. So I had a really good time just kind of exploring what makes Judah a beast now. He has a lot of tendencies that he picked up from the duos tournament and a lot of things that he learned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of that kid. We fought through the lower bracket basically because we were pretty bad. We had lost a lot of games, and every single game he always came back and was like, "Oh, dude, I can't believe I did that, but here's what we're gonna do next time." And he was always very enthusiastic about getting back in there and trying again, and I really respect him for that.
Yeah, I love Judah. He's amazing. And honestly, I'm proud of the Loveland site, just that we had so many players who were willing to not be on the most stacked roster to try to teach somebody, or the younger players who were willing to be teachable and learn something from some of the older players. And, in my opinion, it really showed years down the road. I'm surprised that I haven't really seen more people do this. It's kind of a rarity to see an experienced player like intentionally take a step down, quote unquote. And when I say that, I just mean like decrease your probability of winning to try to teach somebody. But I think it's so important for the scene's growth and player development that people receive mentorship one way or another, whether it's from your own side or somewhere else. Like in the last episode, we really benefited whenever we could get someone to just teach us some of the ropes, show us some tricks. Like we soared from that. One other element.
There were a lot of people who just fed us tons of information over the years between Brew, Thunder, Scythe. And a lot of, I definitely think like a good 90% of our learning was having to watch other people and like play against them and just kind of figure out what's going on. But there's definitely some good advice sprinkled everywhere. Taipan. This is a lot of what Taipan inspired, kind of what I was talking about in the last episode. He presented a problem, and the problem was that I was a middle-sized fish in a small pond. And I believe that the solution for that is to grow the pond. Make the pond bigger. And I think we did a good job. We have a lot of really good players. And I think that they did a good job. Just being passionate and wanting to learn. It's really easy to fall victim to those mentalities that just kind of flatline growth. There's two mindsets, Luke. You got your growth mindset and your
fixed mindset. Yeah.
Fixed mindset. It is hard to grow.
1000%. Well said.
All these guys, growth mindsets.
Growth mindset. Get some. One other really important theme, I think, just for the storyline, and I love these guys, I have great respect for them, but Loveland's so easy. The theme of... Now, Slaughtermelon and Snuffles, they have explained this in recent history, that their intention was, as they say, the Loveland maze is so easy. It's easy to learn how to play there. But we made our frustration with the name pretty vocal, you know, that their team name was Loveland So Easy. And after Caleb came in and defeated us in 21, West Coast 22 in our home arena, that we were back again with the Cedar City coming in to trounce us. And they did it. They were the MVPs of the tournament. They played incredibly in our arena. Very well played, but that was adding a lot of fuel to our rage for sure.
This is going to sound pretentious. I do not believe that they would have won that tournament if we had built a team that was capable of even the West Coast 2018 level. That you guys subbed me in one game and we lost by 5 shots.
Mm-hmm.
They were almost elimed. I didn't have shots. And they took a lot of that stuff really personally too, you know. I'm not gonna. So part of the reason we do podcasts, you know, is to have these types of hot takes. I don't think so. When we got to 2024, there's a lot of reasons, you know.
Yeah.
I can list off tons of them, and like, I definitely had a flawed perspective because my team was booty. It was a bunch of mercs and me and Isaac for some of those games. Dylan was running around too, Dr. Feelgood. So like, yeah. I didn't see anything that they were doing that was working to a point that people couldn't have responded to it. But throwing your heavy on second floor and throwing your commander to third floor, it is easily dealt with planning.
You know, I understand your perspective. I'm not going to definitively say if we could have beat them or not. I don't think it's really the point. I actually want to use this as a teachable moment, perhaps something we might have actually done right for once. I remember a huge feeling that we had over these 2 whole years, 23 and 22. People were disrespecting Loveland because we kept losing. And we had to kind of grin and bear it because we knew that we weren't showing our full strength. But we had to go through 2 years of losing tournaments in our home site to build up our players intentionally. And I'm so glad we did it. I really don't care, to be honest, if we could have won West Coast or if we could have won duos. It doesn't really matter to me because I didn't treat those tournaments like they mattered very much. We used them as learning opportunities for our new players. And it really showed in Nats 24.
I don't want it to be misunderstood because I was very committed to the idea that we should grow our player base.
You think that if we had put out our full strength during those years, we would have won?
I don't have any regrets, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm not like sitting here mulling about whether or not we let Utah have a steam run victory over all of the competition. But I am saying that, like, we chose to commit our resources for longevity, right? Mm-hmm. We were putting eggs in baskets so that they hatched, not so that people would just yoink an egg, you know?
Yeah.
I think people always would have underestimated us anyways, you know? There's I don't know though. I don't think that anybody was really trying to deal with the Cedar City strategy. You know, it was a lot of, okay, well, if we just have our commander and 2 scouts do it harder, then we would get away with it. And I'm absolutely shit talking. It has to happen. I don't think that we would have benefited from winning a West Coast.
No, I think it would have made us cocky, if anything.
Because last time we won a West Coast, we went into 2019 and broke the site. There's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't have even been good for us to like focus on any of that.
Personally, I'm really proud of us that we had the discipline to allow ourselves to at least not have the best chance at winning, to sacrifice the present for the future. And, you know, I think even today, like, the results show just that we have so many talented young players, and part of it, a small part of it, is because we've invested in them. We've given them opportunities. But I think the majority of the credit just goes to each of those players choosing to come in and be part of the scene too. It's been a group effort, you know. It's definitely not something that I can credit either of us with fully, but it's been a team effort. Sergeant Tucker's been huge in it, leading our site, cultivating a culture of actual love and friendship. All the leadership, all the kids that have come and brought their friends and added what they bring to the community. It's been magical.
Duos was kind of the manifestation of that, for sure. And I think Jarrett benefited a lot from playing with you. I think that the entire B team basically was based on a lot of the fundamental things that they learned in this event specifically. Like, this was transformative for them going into 2024. A lot of the things that they learned how to do and a lot of the situations they learned how to handle came from this. Sergeant Tucker, especially with Strikva, was like putting him in positions to succeed based on everything that he knew about his brother.
Yeah, 100%.
It was good.
Wholesome, awesome, and well played to everyone who came out and did win that tournament. Something that came right at the same time, I've got this pulled up here. We had our first rendition of the Loveland A team, and we had some practice games against US West throughout the next few months. Talk a little about where we were at building this team, because this was more your baby right at the beginning.
I had a lot of different ideas, and there was one lineup that I felt like had the highest potential at the time, and we tried it out a couple of times, and like, it's hard because when you don't have a consistent team to practice against, it's usually really one-sided, so you don't really see what you're doing wrong and you're not really getting tested very well. So playing against US West was good for us in a lot of ways because we got to kind of feel out whether or not there was going to be conflict, whether or not people were going to be able to handle that conflict. And then we got to find out, like, kind of where everybody was at. It was a good tester for, like, how strong the entire scene was for us. Because US West was the most successful super team that the US has ever sent, I think. Because I don't think anyone's ever, from the United States, has ever beaten Brisbane in a neutral arena.
Yeah, it was an incredible team. They were innovative, all worked together. No one was the solo carry. They really innovated the game. And
they lost a couple of those, though, right? It wasn't just one-sided.
Well, they lost their first game. We got our one win, and they never let us have it back. They were incredible.
Oh, I mean, in Loveland when we were practicing with them.
Oh, they got one win. Yeah, their final game they won.
They figured it out.
They figured it out because they're good.
We played a little in Cedar City too. We had a field trip, me, Azra, and Judoku. We went out there and we tried to help them practice, and we did our best. They did not. I don't think they lost at all during any of those games.
Mm-hmm.
It was also not a good arena for Space Marines, but cool concept. Movies in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It's hard to play Space Marines in really open areas where there's just like nowhere to have active resupplies. And then in addition to that, nowhere for players to come up after they go down. So it got a little weird. We had to figure out the arena and how to play it, make adjustments. And they were showing a lot of signs of really like being a well-oiled machine at that point. And I do think a lot of that is because we played with them and we gave them time to really gel. In Loveland, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a pretty equal trade. We all got stuff out of it.
Oh yeah, mutually beneficial for sure. Anyway, let's move on to Auckland. The trip for you and I, this is not like Loveland site history, but man, that was a fun trip. We got to go out to Hawaii for a few days, just bum around in Waikiki.
That was fun.
So fun. So healing. I
did a lot of tent perusing.
Oh, did you? Yeah, you did. I was there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to keep interrupting you. Please. What else about Hawaii?
Oh, it's not your fault. The stream is a little bit delayed for me. Your camera, so and the voice isn't synced super well, so I'm trying to watch your lips and make sure you're done talking before I start up. It was awesome. I love hanging out with you, and when I got to spend 2 weeks with you, that was really cool.
Dude, I think it was more like 3. That was just a huge blessing. I had just left my job at the assisted. I was a social worker essentially, not my cup of tea. Got to leave that job and go out with Josiah and heal, I would say. And this tournament, I was selfish in my player development, and I've talked with Nolan about this. So Sweets Nolan was the captain, with Applesauce. Both from Chula. We had Syracuse, Beans, and Cody. And then you and I were all forming a hybrid team. And I was done being the leader. I just wanted to show up, play some scout, and get told what to do. I definitely was not on my A game in terms of winning the tournament. I was really taking a rare opportunity for me to grow in an area I've always wanted to. Because I think at my heart, like, I really have always enjoyed Scout and wanted to play Scout in the whole tournament.
I was just happy to be there, to be honest. I was down to play anything, whatever the team wanted. I enjoyed playing Scout too. It was a rewarding Scout arena. You felt like you were doing stuff, and when you weren't doing stuff, you knew you weren't doing stuff.
100%. Yeah, there were a lot of opportunities to attack people, get creative. Yeah.
That was the trip of a trip of a lifetime for sure. Would love to go back and play another Nats in Auckland someday.
Same.
Definitely the best part was getting to experience the culture. Like the day we landed, everybody was super freaked out because it was the country's second mass shooting ever. And I mean, we didn't hear the end of the jokes for a little bit, but it was kind of an eye-opening experience going to a place where the people enjoy being alive so much that they are all super conscious. Like they're very like focused on not polluting, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really wholesome culture.
Very, very different.
The food
I did not want to come
incredible.
back, actually. I was considering being an immigrant.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, dude. It was hard to leave. That road trip afterwards, I will remember always as well. Just such beautiful countrysides, such great community. Everyone was so kind to each other. It was definitely my favorite Nats I got to attend, just in terms of the vibe. And maybe part of it was just the lack of pressure, lack of expectation. We definitely wanted to take
I was
third.
dead at that point.
And you were dead, yeah. Even just playing video games with you and Odin, like that's one of my favorite parts of that whole trip.
Oh, when I was sick. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
So as far as the tournament goes, we came in. The lineup was generally you and I on scout with Beans Commander, Cody Heavy, and then Sweets Applesauce Resupply. We were the third place team, pretty locked in all tournament. In terms of our skill level, we took a game off of US West. But we Auckland peaked in finals. G&D had his Michael Jordan games, and they wrecked us fair and square. We took fourth place that tournament.
We had some communication breakdowns. I do think that one of the hard parts about being on a hybrid team, any time there's super teams, if you don't have time invested to gel, it gets kind of weird. And there was some stuff working against us. Like all the US players had some stuff working against them with the airline stealing everybody's bags. Cody and Dallin just like Snuffles. I think a couple other people lost their bags. Thunder lost his bags. I think Beans lost his bags.
Think so.
Because they didn't have visas to enter Australia, so they couldn't go to baggage claim.
My goodness. That is why I did not want to check any bags. I just did not trust it. It's too far. Too much to lose. We had carry-ons.
We got there pretty early too. So like we got to kind of check all the stuff out before everybody else got there.
We got to
got a head start. It was we didn't get there as early as Disco Stew, but I mean it was cool. You got to meet my poncho. That was cool.
Sorry, your poncho?
Yeah, the red and black checkered poncho. That thing is going with me everywhere from now on. Every time I travel.
And it helped too, because it was like winter down there.
Yeah, it was chilly. I loved riding the ferry. That was my favorite. The boat. So I don't remember who I asked, but I asked someone what would happen if I jumped in the water, and they said near instant death. That water is so cold.
So what did you take away from this tournament? How did it grow you as a player?
this gets into some stuff that I'm probably not willing to say on a podcast, but I do think that there's tendencies that players have towards things that they care about that don't actually matter. And if you can put yourself in positions where you have less of those than other people, that is a win condition.
You know what? That's just honestly, that's true. Any other ways?
I learned a lot about how important it is for teams to have discussions about stuff, you know, like you have to have a plan. And you have to talk about how you're going to execute that plan going into this. And you have to practice those plans. Regardless of whether or not the US West team didn't go into Auckland early in practice, they did play enough at Loveland where they had to like have their plan set out before them so that they could apply some of the things that they were learning. And they did the same thing in Cedar City. Like they were applying the things that they were learning and talking about. And when you have lists of practice and just like a lot of it, if you have more than the other teams, usually that's already enough to push you over. But if you have synergies and like an interconnection within the team to make yourselves do the things that you're supposed to do, that stuff is just really hard to play against. I don't know if you ever found yourself in 1v1s against Slaughtermelon during that tournament, but even when you got through Slaughtermelon, you always had to deal with Thunder and Dallin, or sorry, Snuffles, coming in through his support angles.
Yeah, I didn't 1v1 Slaughtermelon too much because I was playing Scout the whole time, and he was on Commander.
It's for the best.
But I was trying to hit him in the back a lot. Eve's Thunder was shutting me down constantly. He was really playing like this control, cancel type of player, out predicting me. He did really well. Their whole team did well. I remember being incredibly happy for Slaughtermelon. Like he really made it, you know. He went out and he, despite the differences we had over the years, like he was still our brother. And I remember us hugging him just so tightly after he had come out of that game and won, was a world champion.
I love him, and even if I took Loveland So Easy wrong, that doesn't really. The laser tag side of my life and the loving my friends side of my life have like a gap in between them where they're kind of separated. Because I do think that there's a lot of people who kind of have almost like an alter ego when they're playing laser tag, you know?
Oh, totally. Nothing ever changed. He was still our brother. And he still is today, you know? I love him. And
absolutely.
You know, even if we were disappointed in that tournament,
he had a rough first day.
Yeah.
He had to climb through adversity, and he did great.
Mm-hmm.
It was good.
Yeah. So for me, coming out of that tournament, I made a whole podcast with Sweets about things that I learned, but I think this tournament was absolutely essential for me to be able to lead, build, and play for the Loveland A team as we came into the next year. One of the most impactful things that happened was I got a chance to learn from Rusty. And it's one thing to hear about how good Rusty is. It was another thing to watch him. And my eyes were glued to him all tournament. I was watching the way that he would sprint for every single reset. He would chase the whole 9.5 feet. He was putting 100% effort in constantly, extremely aggressive, extremely precise, extremely fast, extremely predatory is the word I would use for part of his play style. Like, the dude is just always trying to hit somebody. And a lot of that rubbed off on me. I recognized how safe I played it in Auckland, and I knew that in order to win in Loveland the next year, I would have to play for upside. So I really tried to model after Rusty a lot going into Nats the next year. And the other
I remember us talking in the airport, and I was about to blow up the team, and you were like, I don't think you're going to treat this very well. It is time for me to take the wheel. I was like, yeah, that's all right. You can have it.
Well, the thing is that you and I have always kind of co-captained. So no matter what, it was like it was our team in my eyes. And I was going to extend that ownership to the whole of the team, as we'll talk about soon. But the way I saw it, this was my time to shine. I've always been the tactician. I struggle often with the emotions and human side of team building and playing on teams, but I can definitely manage units in a computer game. I can compile stats and build what is a really strong team, strong lineup, strong strategies on paper. And so I asked to take over the team. I wanted to be the captain coming into that next season, and we were going to rebuild Loveland. And there was another thing I learned that was really important from Nats 23. It was that Nats is not for fun. I maintain that. Like, we, as the Auckland team, as the US East in Auckland, we weren't taking it quite as seriously as US West. We were out watching soccer games and hanging out and eating and just having fun during the week. And I don't regret that. But if I really wanted to win, we needed to be putting a lot more effort into the off the clock team strategizing. So coming into the next season, yeah, I was like, I had a vision and I wanted to build that team.
There were a lot of things that I noticed were really bad about our team from Auckland, and asking myself what we needed to change in order to be a team that could beat even Brisbane, right? Just taking second would have been really steep. How could we have done that, right? It definitely opened up a lot of doors for me as far as team building stuff goes. I don't know if you remember, but I was straight up just denouncing a lot of the people that we had on our A-team list.
Mm-hmm. Well, it came down to
why they're not good enough.
It came down to like 9 players, and I'm happy to announce them all. Like, we were building our team with you and I, and then the rest of the slots were completely open for debate. I came home. And I told everyone, like, I'm sorry, the A-team is demolished. We're rebuilding it. And we rebuilt it doing tryouts between Simply Okay, Sergeant Tucker, Brahmatize, Ghost, Strikva, Azra, and Dr. Feelgood. For the next, 6 months, we were trying out a lot of things.
I remember the conversation being like, okay, well, what do we need to do in order to win, right? First we started with ourselves, and I think we were pretty much on the same page about we needed to make sure that we're in the impact roles and we need to be playing 3-hit. And we talked a little bit about who should play heavy and who should play commander, but that conversation wasn't super long because I think both of us agreed that you should have been commander.
Well, there was a little bit of a plot line where I still did not believe in myself as a heavy in Loveland after Nats 22. 23, I gained my confidence back a bit, but I was still convinced that, like, you know, I was proposing that simply okay, Ghost, Brahmatized, really anybody but me play heavy. It was definitely a fear of mine. So yeah, I was pretty comfortable on Commander or Scout. And I definitely, I insisted that you should be a 3-hit. So the first iterations, you know, we went through a few iterations. Originally, there was definitely some different personality conflicts. I don't want to get all into that, but we had really settled on a lineup where I think it was something along the lines of like simply okay. So like you and me on 3-hit, it was something like simply okay or Ghost or Brahmatized. No, simply okay. Strikva and Ghost like were like our scouts, and it was going to be like Brahmatized Ammo and Azra Medic, because I think Sergeant Tucker wanted to play on the B team at the time. There was he definitely wanted to play on the A team, I think, but
the memories are melding a little bit. Sergeant Tucker didn't want to play with specific people that were on the roster, and Dr. Feelgood and Azra and who else was on the list? Loki was on the list of people
Loki.
that we were looking at. So there were some people on that list among a great list of people that he wasn't super comfortable playing with.
We kind of built up the team. We even made an official announcement on the roster, and then I'm forgetting exactly why we needed to rebuild it a third time, but we did. We had locked it in too quickly and realized that we have some more things to figure out. To be honest, I'm
hurt some feelings out there.
Yes, to be honest, I'm mentioning this because we essentially scrapped the A team and we had replaced Azra with Strikva. And I'm mentioning this because I think it's really important to recognize that Azra was absolutely in a spot where she would have been able to play her role exceptionally well on our team. We had her on resupply and as a scout flex potentially. Her macro game, despite being one of our newer players, like she had developed such an incredible macro game and communication skills. The reason that we ultimately, crazy. Yeah, absolutely, we were ready to go all in with her. The reason ultimately was when we re-looked at teams, we started just with the ground up. We wanted you on heavy. I had figured out that like you were the best heavy by a wider margin than you were the best commander or any other position at our site. And I asked you, who do you want as your resupply? It might have had something to do with the fact that I was getting a lot of people on podcasts to try to pick their brains and get some more, ideas for the team. Death Knight had come on and talked about team building. I was picking Odin's fist spraying a little bit. And we recognized how much the heavy synergizes with the resupply. So I asked you, who do you want for your resupply on heavy? And you said Sergeant Tucker. And then we went to Sergeant Tucker and we asked him, who do you want as your resupply partner? And he said Strikva, his brother. And we built from there. That was our official lineup, our official defense. We built the offense off of that.
I was right, by the way. Sergeant Tucker was the pick.
Completely the pick. He had been training for it his entire career. He was absolutely the right pick. Go look at the stats. He definitely was the right pick. And after that, simply okay, one of our absolute top tier offense players was potentially not going to be able to play in the tournament. He was having a child, which was incredible news. But we had to kind of consider him
Incredible for him.
Incredible for him, but we had to consider him a maybe, and for me, I considered him a no to play just out of safety. So the lineup became me on Commander with Ghost and Brahmatized Scouts. That was the roster.
And then it all came crashing down again.
Yeah. So
Brickfa said, I want to play for the B team.
Yep. After we had locked everything in, and I'm going to reference a bunch of documents, by the way, on this podcast. I cracked open the Loveland A folder, the secret folder, and I have tons and tons of content and spreadsheets that I will be referencing throughout this podcast. I made a giant PowerPoint with Strikva's icon in all of this, detailing exactly how we play our meta and our specific strategy for the Loveland A team. You know, I'm kind of flipping through it right now. This was very in-depth. We had everyone on the team sign an agreement detailing the lineup that we would be mainly practicing.
I forgot about the contract.
Yeah, dude. This was the briefing. You know, there was a whole... yep, here it is. Couple things on this contract. We had players sign and say, I will make an intentional effort to take care of my physical, mental, and emotional health for the next year. I will earnestly try to uphold a culture of brotherly love, support, and transparency among my teammates. I acknowledge that the ultimate goal above all others is for Loveland A to win Internationals 2024 with honor, humility, and dignity. I will represent the Loveland site well by refraining from public slander, bullying, harassing, and gossiping. I will not elevate myself above others by being on this team. I will not intentionally cheat and be a good sport. We made the goal to be good people above the second ultimate goal of taking first. I made it very clear that we would rather lose honorably than to win dishonorably.
We had some unfortunate contract violations, but it's all right.
We did, but on the whole, I'm really proud of how the team did.
I didn't even remember some of the direct addressing.
So everyone signed this, and then Strikva left the team. So we ended up kind of struggling to fulfill Strikva's spot for a while. Loki actually was not planning to play in Nats, but eventually we got him to sign up as our sub, as our seventh. It's not a, we call him a sub, but like he was playing most of the games for our team in the tournament. Loki had a role.
In the beginning, I remember him not really wanting to take part in specific types of games, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we eventually he was like pretty committed. I think after he saw how committed we were, he was like, oh hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. My chips are in the bucket.
We invented our team name, the Loveland Phoenix, which ironically was Joe's team name from season 1 of Loveland. We included a logo that had references to all the other sites in the world that were actively playing in SM5. It's pretty cool. Took forever to agree on the logo, but we eventually got it. Sorry, please cut me off at any point if you wanna take over. So we had we listed out all the teams that were coming. We made a bunch of different openings. We worked on
We eventually ended up
strategy.
building the B team the same way, right? Because, like, I remember having a lot of conversations. That is super cute, by the way. But I remember we were eventually having a lot of conversations about how people get along. You know, how do we build this team? And I remember we started with like kind of what the recipes of success are, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And with B teams, it's less about like winning a lot of games and just having good structure, you know? I think that was something that I don't know where we picked that up from, but
Well, we had a lot of conversations about what on earth is actually going to help us win the tournament. We wanted to be so over prepared that if we ended up having a lot of wasted effort, it was totally okay in my book. Something that we talked about a lot. You talked about basketball a lot, about the ways that basketball teams are built. You want to talk about that a bit?
sure. There's always a balance of athletic young people and people who have been exposed to everything, you know, the veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have those types of how do I say this? When you have those types of chemistry, it's really easy for people to have their questions answered by people who know the answers. And for the older guys, you know, having young people to run all the miles is what it comes down to, you know. You can have tons of situations where a 30-year-old person is running and a 25-year-old person is running, and usually I'm going to put the money on the 25-year-old. Just based off of their ability to have more energy. So like there's a lot of contributing factors, I think, to building teams, but having the skeleton of having a balance of veterans and rookies, and then you have your star players and stuff, like you want to surround people with talent that is diverse but doesn't hate each other. That's really important.
Yeah, 100% agree. Building the B team was an extremely important part of our success as the Loveland A team. I am eternally grateful. We are eternally grateful to Strikva, Azra.
You saved our lives. We are eternally grateful.
The Rat, Judoku, White Ninja, and the Rook. Those 6 players, you know, we got them together right before the first Mega Members Night, which huge shout out to Autumn as well for organizing 5 Mega Member Nights that year in 2024 so that people could practice for Nats, including our team. That lineup came together with Strikva Commander, White Ninja Heavy. Was this 14-year-old kid, insanely good at laser ball, had developed the ability to play heavy in such a great way. Like, we were all super excited for him. Azra and the Rat playing Resupply together was an extremely good synergy, and I don't think any of us really expected that. Remember when they decided on that lineup?
I think that may have actually been one of my ideas.
That was your idea?
I think that the Rat has one specific tendency in every role that he plays, no matter what role it is. He is very good at not dying before the medic. As a scout, his hit diffs are always really high because he puts himself in places where he can tag people, but it's really inconvenient to tag, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that style doesn't put up huge amounts of points because usually he's somewhere that is really like, it's really bothersome for people to go down and get him, you know? Mm-hmm. Or he's in the resupply. he doesn't really he doesn't really commit to like attacking resupplies from the bottom of the ramp and just like running up and getting shot and running up and getting shot. You know, he sees that as just like stupid. And that is a very good skill to have when you're a medic. Being able to choose not to try and fight, being able to choose to go down and really save the money. Because, like, for him, his lives are $20, you know, and every time he gets shot, he loses $1.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to lose all the money.
Yeah.
And,
you know, he's such a capitalist. He loves keeping his money, you know.
he got the rat hole named after him because of how he played scout. Because he would just go downstairs and stand in that stupid corner and just bonk. Bonk, bonk.
Hmm.
And then there would be nothing for 2 minutes. And then bonk, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Adding pressure to like specific angles, standing in big box, stuff like that. He was always trying to be in the back, least likely to get shot, but most likely to be able to hit something if there was a person there. And Azra, as an individual, is very, very crafty. She's very, very tricky. She's so crafty. She's got a lot of different ideas in the moment, and she feels the flow of the game, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
She has a really direct understanding even at this point in time, right? Like, she was very good at getting people where they needed to go if it seemed like they needed directions. She definitely, like, the shields are evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
She knew when she was getting attacked and when she needed to protect the rat. And this created a dynamic where it was really, really hard to kill the rat in reasonable amounts of time. And when that happens, when your resupply are independent and they can function without their heavy just like sitting on them and making sure they don't die, it is an incredible boost. You get a lot of free movement, which I don't think a lot of other places can really play in that style. Like, I don't think that it works very well in Syracuse to have your resupply standing up top, you know, while your heavy is somewhere completely different.
Yeah, our arena definitely has a lot of individual complexity. The crazy thing about our B team is just, it's not crazy because they're a B team. They got to actually practice in this crazy arena, despite all being rookies and so new to the scene. The evidence comes out later how well they played. But what I love is that we threw the 6 of them together and their roles weren't decided for them. We made recommendations. Azra really stepped up, and despite having that craftiness, she was forced to extend that ability out to be more of an on-the-field leader for her team. She played ammo. She was telling the rat where to hide, where to go, often telling the scouts where they need to be going, keeping track of everything. And she was elected to be the captain of the team. And she's definitely got incredible leadership ability, but you almost don't expect her to because she tends to be a little more reserved as a personality.
Definitely some credit to Strickfa. Strickfa definitely had some co-captain duties, you know.
100%.
I definitely think that Azra was running like 80% of the show, you know. But I do think that he definitely supported her where he could. And it wasn't like the team was rebelling, you know. They were just, they had a unique system to be able to get things done the way that they wanted to. And it helps when everyone is really committed to the same goal, right? We're trying to learn as much as possible. And both of their scouts, the Rook and Judoku, were very, 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 very happy to be there. It was for them, like, they were both kind of unbreakable spirits, like they just didn't really get mad about it very much. Like, everyone gets mad eventually, but like as far as like the bar goes, they were very consistent. They did not really care too much about getting beat up a lot.
No, I mean, no one likes to lose, but you're totally right. They are, these personalities are really enjoyable to play with. I'm glad you mentioned them. I really wanted to make sure that Judoku and the Rook got a shout out in this. Both of their journeys were really cool. Judoku came in with a lot of synergy with Strickville already. He was such a beacon of control through the center of the field for that team, as well as being just someone who was so uplifting outside of games. The Rook, this was a huge... I think if anyone grew the most out of playing for Loveland B, it was the Rook, I think. His play style on Scout, like, he's a player that enjoys a structured role, and playing Scout really broke him of that. He had to learn how to adjust and be flexible with what his team needed in the moment. And his creativity is, I think, is an outlier. He's extremely creative. I loved watching him try to break teams by himself, be a distraction. And yeah, this B team grew incredibly throughout the week. Sorry, the year.
Eight months of the B team figuring out how to play, and they ended up learning even more in the tournament. Like, I don't it's hard to say who grew the most because they all grew in different ways, you know. The Rat's ability to just do what he's told and trust his team was incredible. He never questioned anything that they were telling him to do, and he just did it. I don't know how many times he ran up those ramps throughout the week. I bet he at least did like 400 laps in the 8-month period.
1,000%. If anybody knows the Rat, they'll know that the Rat does not enjoy structured competitive team play. But when the Rat was asked to do a job for these 5 kids, you bet he put on the try-hard pants for them. You can tell just how much the Rat genuinely loved these kids and loved playing on this team, because he was there for them all throughout.
Whatever they needed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of the reason you need people, like, you need that diversity, right?
Right.
His ability to be the adult in any situation that they needed.
The adults.
Like, he was pretty consistent.
Yeah, he certainly was. Outstanding job, Rat. Outstanding job to the whole B team. Because for those 8 months, they had to get their butts whooped by our team over and over and over again, and boy, were they getting disheartened.
They won a game.
They won a game.
And I think that's more than a lot of other B teams were able to do with their A teams, which is an active reflection of how strong they were, right? Mm-hmm. Just like the ability to be able to come over that hill. And they can say whatever they want about that game, but like, they don't give themselves enough credit for a lot of the practice that they put in. White Ninja definitely showed a lot of talent already going into the practice, but definitely having to learn how to play heavy against me and you a lot. Mm-hmm. He got a lot of he got a lot of good tricks. He's really good. I don't even know how else to say it. Like he plays the wall really well. He's super fast, and he has, when he's focused on having perfect technique, it's incredible. Easily one of their best players. And there's no yeah, I don't really know if there's any like room for debate about that. He was always consistent, and because he was 14, he had the infinite kid energy glitch.
He was 14 and he played debatably the most responsibility required role of the team. I remember having a talk with him after day one where he was talking about how his team wasn't providing him enough space for him to do what he needed to do. And I told him that the mentality should be reversed. You are there to provide a space for your team to do what they need to do. Everything you do is about your team. And frankly, no one cares about you. You're the heavy. You got to be the babysitter and the adult. And that may not be the most fair way to look at the role, but that's unfortunately how I've often viewed it. And after that, boy, did he just took responsibility. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves to the tournament, and that's on me. There were quite a few little mini chapters and changes that we made leading up to the tournament. Even after we got our A team, a lot of things happened to get us to the final form before we actually played it.
We learned a lot leading up to this point, and where we are right now, right in our little lore timeline, we were trying to figure out what our best lineup was, because it's hard for us to tell, right? Part of the reason you need a good conscious B team is so that they can tell you what we're doing, like what we're doing that's working. Mm-hmm. And our actual, like, our finals lineup, we talked to them about it, like which of these lineups do you guys feel is stronger between X, Y, and Z, because we had tried a bunch of different stuff against them, and they pretty much unanimously agreed that the roster we ended up rolling out in finals was our strongest lineup. And I do think that because we had a couple different ideas. Me playing commander and you playing heavy was thrown in there a couple of times. There was the idea of just like running ghost all the way through. That sounded bad, but he played. He could have played at the level. There were a lot of different options, and
right,
they were a lot of that deciding factor for us, leading all the way through practice. And we kind of created a game plan based on the stuff they were talking about. Considering everybody for every role was really a really long process, because there's a lot of different combinations, especially when Loki got added in. Mm-hmm. Because there's all sorts of different synergies to people connecting with each other. It gets kind of complicated.
Yeah. Oh boy, you're telling me complicated, but I really enjoyed. I'm walking through my stat sheets with Josiah, and I got every line of every stat, every average that our members had across the different roles. And ultimately there was a lot. There's a lot to go in this. Just to name some things, like we were calculating synergies, we were taking video footage of all the different players and doing notes on their. I have detailed notes on every GoPro game. Yeah, Here I put in. Oh, here, this is good. I put in a timeline.
The calculator.
I put in a timeline for our lineups and how it evolved over the months. So, like we had you and me on 3 hits right off the bat. I think there were a lot of talks about you trying to put me on heavy throughout it, and I was pretty resistant.
I was pretty committed to playing heavy. The only time when we questioned it was when we practiced the classic that one time. And we were like, okay, this still feels really strong,
Mm-hmm.
The classic was our nickname for the 2018 West Coast lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it would have been wrong necessarily to go for that, but I do think that there was a lot more opportunity for mental fracture,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have a little bit of like stress when I play heavy, but like I do think that there was a little bit more volatility with you or Simply Okay or Sergeant Tucker or Brahmatized, So
Mm-hmm.
like I was looking forward to playing against Cayman. I definitely didn't have any dread going into it against Kodama or Snuffles. So I was I think I was pretty suited for the role.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree.
I think that literally the only time we questioned it was when we were testing out other stuff, and we were just like, oh, there is that.
Yeah. So there are a few things that I think over the 8 months I want to bring up that were important factors in the decision of the lineups and the openings and the general Loveland strategy. One thing is recognizing the emotional element of sports. I was definitely trying to make sure that we were not looking at it just from the lens of the analytics, but recognizing the human element. We wanted everyone on the team to feel like they had ownership, that they could bring ideas to the table. I was really impressed with the maturity of everybody, that in general, like everyone was willing to do what they needed to do. That idea that we should try to be good men above being first place winners came from former NFL coach Tony Dungy, who wrote a book on leadership. And he would talk about how when he got a player added onto his team, he was really intentional about trying to be a mentor to them and build them up as a person, build up their success outside of the team's success. And people developed a true loyalty because of that kind of care he put into people. And finally, I was having a conversation with one of my buddies who I play fantasy football with, and I was explaining my situation to them, that we have all these different lineups that we're trying to figure out. And when I told him that we were considered the favorites for the tournament, though I didn't necessarily believe we were favorites by a lot, he told me that when you're the favorite, you don't have to try anything super crazy. You can just put out your basic lineup and let the other teams do something crazy to try to catch up to you. And that developed the idea that we should try to simplify down to floor and ceiling lineups. That there's our solid lineup across the board, and if we need to shoot for the stars or add some gunpowder, some explosive uncertainty into our team, we can practice that too. But ultimately we ended up with you and me on 3-hit, Ghost Brahmatized on Scout, Simply Okay, and Sergeant Tucker on Resupply.
We talked about this one for like a month.
Yeah.
There was a lot of different processes to putting people where they were supposed to go. And then, like, I remember it ended up falling apart because we had practiced Brahmatized and Sergeant Tucker on Resupply for so long. And then, like, 3 months before the tournament, we tried out Simply Okay on Resupply with Sergeant Tucker, and we were just like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. Well, for
It's got a little more punch.
For both players, it was a much more natural fit. Like, we did practice Sergeant Tucker and Brahmatized on Resupply for a long time because they had, like, we were practicing with the idea that they could flip at any moment and people wouldn't know which one of them was the medic. They both had distinct styles, and it worked pretty well. It worked pretty well for the most part. They're both really good players, and they had decent synergy. But Simply Okay and Sergeant Tucker fit like a glove from the moment they tried it.
Like two gloves. They were a pair.
Not to mention, Brahmatized is an incredible team player in that he was totally willing to play medic the whole tournament. However, every few weeks he would come up to me with an idea for the team, and every single idea always ended with him playing scout. It got to a point where he came up to me with an idea, and I actually just stopped him and I said, so at what point does this idea have you playing scout? And he laughed. Brahmatized is probably the most aggressive player on the team. He loves to attack. He always goes hard. And despite the fact that he could play a very good medic or ammo, his heart was set on playing scout. So I personally really value Simply Okay's ability to play scout. He's got incredible synergy. He can kind of do it all. But putting Brahmatized on scout added an extremely aggressive element to our offense, and Simply Okay on ammo made the defense really shore up and be just nearly unbreakable. That was our floor, you know? Like, it became so much more synergetic from that point forward, I think.
It exposed one weakness, and it benefited us like 15 different things, you know? Mm-hmm. Between all the resets, the shields, all of the ways that they were able to function on the back line, and then on the front line, all of the medic hits and all of the resets and all of the 3-hit hits. There was a lot of stats that ended up backing up the argument that Simply Okay was the correct choice. But this left us with a situation where we didn't have a second floor scout.
A slight oversight that we had to figure out in finals. But
because Simply Okay and Loki were our second floor scouts.
Yes, they were. And you were unavailable.
I had other things going on.
Why don't we start talking about the tournament? Actually, maybe I'm jumping ahead. There's one thing I want to note that we went with before the tournament. As we really approached the... Also, sorry, is there anything that, before I get to that, like, few weeks before the tournament, is there anything else you wanted to add about our process?
I mean, we had a huge emphasis on panic as a concept. Like, you can't let yourself get absorbed to a point where you are freaking out. That was like one of the baseline things that we were trying to drill into everybody's heads for a long time. And honestly, a lot of those tools ended up benefiting me a lot, just because I definitely am susceptible to my environment, and when it's really chaotic and people are freaking out, I definitely have moments of weakness, you know? Mm-hmm. So being able to, like, learn a lot about myself throughout this process was really nice. And it's always easier to maintain your cool when you're not losing, you know.
Mhm.
But we definitely had volatile players on our team, and kind of that veteranship definitely came in clutch, because Loki was always there to be like, well, what are you doing? You know. It was he was always there and present for us to like be emotional with. Same with Brahmatized and you. It was good.
Yeah.
We set up a lot of support structures. We had an entire meeting about like what are things that are hard for us,
Mhm.
and what are things that help us out of those situations, and how to interact with each other in those moments. How do I bring you out of it? You know, how can I help you? How can you be helped?
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that. I apologize. I'm jumping the gun. That was such a huge theme through all of this. Trying to build the friendships. We were really focusing on our congruence as a team. We tried to hang out outside of tag. We did like a 4th of July firework festivities at a Brahmatized place. We did board game nights. We ate out all the time together. Tried to just hang out and be friends, you know? And we had a group therapy session about like why we get upset and how can we help each other in those moments. I think that helped everyone feel really cared about. Some other things that we did, there was a whole phase where I was obsessed with the idea that we could actually learn to defend our bottom floor if we actually just practiced and set up a structure. We dedicated like a month to that, and it just didn't go very well. So I think our general like concept that we came up with was, if we get pushed downstairs, we need to quickly get back upstairs.
That's what it boils down to.
That was our big plan.
Let's go upstairs. Yeah. I mean, in general, we had a really good understanding of how to gauge resources, right? We definitely talked a lot about like how to recognize what the game state looks like based on the amount of people you can see, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a huge emphasis on being in places where you are supposed to be as opposed to not supposed to be, and doing it in ways that are, if you are in a place where you're not supposed to be, being able to not take it personally when people are like, yo, this is not where you're supposed to be. Taking criticism from each other was a pretty big step, I think.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. One other thing that was heavily emphasized in the planning, but not really in the execution, was openings. I got in front of me the playbook, which we had, if we needed them, we had, looks like about 14 openings. Like besides just sending your heavy third and your commander second, like ways that we could open the game in a unique way that would throw the enemy team off. And that's not counting the 8 resupply openings that could be mixed and matched in there. I'm pretty sure we didn't use anything until finals. But it was a fun concept to try.
We got some stuff for next time.
Like I made this because I was preparing for a world where we were the second or third most powerful team at the tournament. And in an event where we had to punch up and surprise the opponent, we had options in our back pocket.
Dang, Luke, way to call everyone bad.
I didn't mean to. I was freaking out though, because West Coast and duos, like, we weren't the best teams there. Even though we knew we were not putting our best foot forward, but I was not taking any chances, dude. I needed to make sure that we were prepared for every outcome.
I was listening to one of your podcasts that has already come out, and I remember you saying that we were not that over prepared to somebody. I don't remember who it was, but I don't know how to tell you this, dude. We spent way longer than anyone else planning for this situation. Every single situation, right? We had injury lists going all the way back. Like, we dug in, and I definitely did not put as much work into this portion as you did. I was a little bit more focused on trying to keep people motivated to keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
We definitely hit some morale issues at about month 4 through like 5, because there's always feelings of dread. And like, I remember we were planning for Scythe to come out and play for Detroit. We were planning for Brisbane to potentially just like have a team come out. We were planning for, well, obviously the Cedar City team, which had just won the West Coast in 2022.
Yeah.
And I remember that we had basically like a 3-phase plan where during round play, we kind of just kept it pretty simple, and we hit a lot of stuff. We had Ghost playing Commander, so that there was just like very low interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. You planned out every single game.
Yes, I did.
Every single game.
Let me know if you find what podcast that was, because I might have been just saving a little face, being humble. But yeah, I definitely prepared a lot. So before we get to Nats itself, like, do you remember that like a couple, like 2 or 3 weeks before the tournament, our site had kind of a meltdown?
Yeah, I went on a trip to go and just like clear my brain. It's really easy for me to put myself in situations where I'm feeling really depressed, and going out and reminding myself that that the world is bigger than where I am, it really helps. It's a perspective thing. And I went and I hung out with Stu and Rhea in Michigan, and that was really cool. We played some disc golf. I got to meet Rhea's dogs, which was cool.
Nice.
There was an unfortunate event that week that I missed for the Loveland A team. The B team scraped a game off of you guys, and
that was all it took.
That was all it took. Suddenly, the entire world was coming down. I was getting text messages and taking phone calls. I got trapped in Orlando because the whole Microsoft thing was happening, where all the servers for airports was shut down, and like hospitals and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was just in Orlando for a little bit, and there was a lot of panicking going on, and I definitely understand, because we spent 8 months working on not freaking out. But in the end, it ended up being really good for us, because like understanding that it's one thing to say, oh yeah, we're beatable, but it's another thing to get beaten when you have built up this ego that you're really, really good.
Yeah.
There's something jarring about it that is pretty indescribable.
Yeah. And that was a pretty pivotal moment that I think was really a good thing that the B team took a game off of us, because it helped us make the final preparations for the tournament. And I'm not gonna say everything I felt after that week, but I will say that I was disappointed. I was pretty demoralized because it took so little for so much work to be undone. And regardless of how hard we had tried to sort of like make ourselves immune to being tilted, it was clear that we still had those weaknesses. They were still going to be there, and we had to account for them coming into the tournament. So I did a couple things. One, I really simplified our strategy into a one sheet. I will never show this to a non-Lovelander, but the most important concepts of all of our plans, I brought them the next week and I handed them out. I said, please memorize this, take it home, study it. I really just like try to dummy proof a lot of the stuff, as complicated as our strategy was and as good as our players were, just making sure we don't forget the basics, because we had forgotten some basics for sure. And I made my expectations very clear for the next week. We were going to take a break. You know, that following week when you came back, we all just went out and we got some food and we didn't play Space Marines. We took a little breather. But for those final 8 days, we were going to have one practice night. And I brought everybody a sheet that said, I expect that you're going to show up and stay until 11 o'clock at night for our practice lock-in. We had out-of-towners coming in, and we said they couldn't be there while we were practicing. Remember that?
Yeah, we had a slideshow for the rookies, too.
Yeah.
I think we ended up letting some people stay anyways, to be completely honest.
I think so.
I think we let them all stay.
I said, we're going to practice our team rules all evening. You will be prepared to embrace the identity of a professional laser tag player for 8 days starting today. That means you show up on time, practice reverence for your craft, provide constructive criticism only, manage one's rest and personal health in mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional levels. And I made people sign that they will maintain a solid sleep schedule, getting 7 hours each night, eat mostly, if not all, healthy foods, maintain your physical health, warm up before games. Like, I did not hold back on my expectations for those 8 days. Like, that's what I needed from people for just that amount of time. Don't show up intoxicated to anything. Don't sabotage yourself or your team. Reflect on why you're playing the game. All this stuff. And finally, Josiah, I handed over the reins of captaining to you. I was no longer going to be the captain.
Yeah, you didn't want to do it. You were like, it's time for me to do the stream.
Yeah. I think I had given
Which was fun.
I'd given my 8 months. I was pretty disheartened at that point, and I knew you were the right option. I knew it was time for you to step in.
I remember being okay with it. There was a lot to catch up on in that group chat. And I read that whole freaking thing.
So, the tournament came around.
It came around. And that was fine.
I got all the games and lineups right here. So.
Phase 1 was we were going to have Ghost play Commander for basically all the games except for the ones against Callier. And we ended up kind of flipping into kind of a rotation setup so that people could like not have to play the same roles every game.
Yeah.
Unless they wanted to. Kind of putting people in places where they're going to have a good time in combination with having the serious games.
Mm-hmm.
We were pretty serious about hiding all of our tricks until it was time to not hide the tricks, which we learned from Beans, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Beans.
Go
like
Beans.
And subscribe.
Mm-hmm. Like and subscribe.
We definitely made a couple of mistakes, as a group, but for the most part, people were kind of struggling with adapting to Greenside throughout the entire tournament. And I mean, that worked out for us a couple of times anyways, but I remember specifically the practice night having to tell all of the Lovelanders that we would not be playing any laser tag was interesting. I expect all of you to be there. We will not be playing laser tag. We will be reffing. And there were some disgruntled feelings about that.
Yep. I did not care. It's Nats. Show up, watch your competition.
Let them have games where people are holding them accountable to the rules too, because like I think it's important to also treat your guests with hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried, there was a forest fire going on 20 miles from us, so it was couldn't really like do anything. The reason we went to IHOP for the awards dinner was because there was natural disaster conditions going on.
You know what, dude?
So like
IHOP's pretty good. I'm just gonna say it. I think people were overreacting a bit.
It's also easy to have a lot of bad feelings when you had a rough time at an event that you really had high expectations for, I think.
That is an empathetic response. Good job.
Good job. Gold star. Day one, we knew going into it that we were going to be playing against both Callier and Cedar City, who we had kind of deemed as the big fish coming in.
Mm-hmm.
No Brisbane, and sorry Detroit, but you guys were Loveland C. So like Syracuse, broken arm Beans. There were only a couple of threats, like real threats, that we assessed in a lot of our planning phase. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's just like you guys had Syracuse had a lot of players that had played the arena in 2015 and they had taken third, and that was 9 years ago, 9 years prior to this. So a lot has changed in the arena layout itself, and also like a lot of people got old. A lot of those guys are old, and it's not
Careful,
personal,
man. They're gonna tell you to get off their lawn if you keep calling them old, dude. Be careful.
Might call them old one more time just for an extra zinger, But we knew Cody was going to come in and do a lot of damage, but frankly, like, I don't think that there was any way that any commander was going to be more threatening than Slaughtermelon. I don't think that there was any heavy that was going to be more threatening than Kodama.
I don't think any of this needs to be taken as those teams were bad. It was we got 8 months of practice as a team. We got
and
over a year to prep, and we were all really good. So we knew we had the advantage, especially in the first few days when people were adapting. And part of our strategy was to tried to show a lineup that wasn't going to give away how we're going to play in finals, essentially. So we had a lot of moving pieces. Players were moving constantly, usually between 2 or 3 different roles. We were also trying to conserve some energy and make sure that people got buys.
The original conversation was we were trying to set up expectations for us to come in at 3rd seed, because worst case scenario, Ghost wouldn't be able to win X amount of games from his position. And like, I remember specifically having conversations about interactions with Callier and Cedar being like much tougher than
yes, those were the two we were mainly...
what we could even really... Well, I mean, what we could even really expect, right? Like, we thought they were going to be cooking up all sorts of stuff for us to deal with. And we thought that they were going to bonk us in the face.
They certainly could have. I was not going to be under any illusion that they would be easy. They both took games off of us this tournament, and all of our games were... There was definitely potential for them to win. Not all of them were close, but like they also had just come in. They didn't get the prep time. In a neutral arena, I don't think we would have even had the advantage over those teams, to be honest.
They had their own advantages too, though, you know? So, like, you gotta... It's hard to say because this team will never travel together. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. So, like, it's hard to compare them. But the weaknesses of our team needed to not be exploited in order for us to succeed. Mm-hmm. And the way to hide those weaknesses is by not just not doing it. Because people are going to watch you if you do it. It's just going to happen, especially if it's on the stream. People are going to be able to go back and watch the VODs and just look at what you're doing. Mm.
Yeah, that's something we were hugely aware of. So we had our commander players rotating out a lot. Our resupply, we kept the defense pretty consistent. It was a lot of Simply Okay, Ammo, Sergeant Tucker Medic, and myself on heavy. Part of the thought behind that was we knew we were going to roll you out on heavy at the end. And when you and I play heavy against each other, if you're trying hard, you know my tricks, and I have a hard time predicting you. So if we could get people used to me, we thought that pulling you out on heavy at the very end was going to be kind of like our big ticket surprise.
We made a mistake. We should have pulled it out a match earlier during finals.
Against Loveland B?
But, yeah. We should, well, just to warm ourselves up to the lineup. Because turns out when you spend a whole bunch of time growing into some like things, you find stuff that works, and the natural inclination is to keep doing the things that work, no matter what the habit is. And if you are doing that, you need to have the circumstances continue to be consistent with everything, basically. Like, you need to play the same way over and over again. And when you drastically change your lineup, a lot of those habits become toxic in a lot of ways. So, like, people can make a lot of mistakes if there's not immediate adjustment. And so it was kind of risky, to be honest. Definitely riskier than I thought it was going to be.
But we were planning it the whole time because we had a fundamental belief that everyone was going to have all week to adapt to what we showed them. And we wanted to change it even if what we were doing previously was working, because I thought that other teams were going to do more things to change up their lineup on us. You know, they might have been plotting like, oh, we're not going to show our good stuff in rounds, but during finals, we're going to pull out what we think will counter the Loveland meta that they've been showing. So we wanted to come in with something they've never seen before anyway. And yes, we lost our first game in a pretty cool fashion to Cali.
I mean, Cedar got us with that same strategy, though. They pulled out the trick play in the second to last game we played against, or no, it was just the last game that we played against them in round play.
Mm-hmm.
They used their card just to see if it would work, and then it worked, and they were like, I'll never forget how excited they were. They were screaming so loud.
Yeah,
I'm happy for them.
But they really shouldn't have broken that out till finals. I don't think. Like, they gave us a warning as to what was coming when we played them in finals.
I mean, we were already anticipating it a lot. I remember in the planning phases, we were very sure that they were going to play that style, because they played that way the entire West Coast 2022.
Yeah, but they were playing regular meta for all of round play. So it was like
except for that one game. Yeah.
It's like they were almost doing what we were doing, like saving their good stuff for finals. And imagine if they had pulled that off in finals instead of that round play game. I don't know. It just seemed like they were pulling it off too early, and another situation where like they maybe should have sacrificed the present for the future. But I digress. We won pretty much every game except that one game against Cedar City during round play. As we moved through finals, we got to, I mean, let's talk about the game against Five Nights at Loveland real quick in the Elim bracket.
We treated them with respect.
We did.
We played the classic because we knew that it was strong enough to not reveal secrets, but it was also like our second best lineup. If I played Commander and you played Heavy, there was the way that they played was a little bit too similar to what we were doing, and just very small adjustments to what we were doing in order to take advantage of that was, I say very small adjustments, just like little niche things that just accumulate over time are kind of what I'm talking about, I guess. And they had played, I think this is before they played their match against Cedar in finals, but they had played some of their best laser tag. Like they beat Beans on Commander, right? And Beans Commander's no joke, broken arm or not. They had shown us over and over again that they were good enough to play at the level, and we couldn't lose to the B team. That was a risk that could not happen. If we had dropped a game to them, it probably would have destroyed the team.
Yeah, because once again, finals, we recognize our weaknesses for sure in all this. You're right.
So we had to apply a lot of force.
And if anyone on that B team is offended by that, again, we were treating you with the respect of an extremely dangerous opponent. We had to give you one of our best lineups. We were not going to risk it in finals against you.
Yeah. It had to be safe. Otherwise, we would have lost. And that would have been unfortunate.
Yeah, because this first game especially was not an easy win.
No. It was grindy.
Very grindy. So we were able to defeat the B team. And they played well enough to really give us a run for our money. Just really well played. Got Sergeant Tucker down to 1 life in that first game. Second game was a little easier.
He also was like playing all crazy, you know? He wasn't just like taking shots he didn't need to be taking. It was a lot of, they were very focused on doing damage. and we didn't always respond very well. There was, especially during round play, we definitely found a lot of things that we needed to clean up. I think we had a game go to time basically against Cali. It was like 14:59, 1 second left. Barely got the elim.
Yeah, in round play.
Yeah. At that point, Strikva, Judoku, and the Rook had a really, really clean attack pattern that just was always punishing people. There was not really a lot of ways that you couldn't anticipate them doing well. Like they were going to play really, really hard against us. They were going to make us earn it. And I do think that Ghost finally getting into that like comfortable scout position where he was able to play downstairs and Bromley was playing upstairs was starting to really gel for them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we had to practice that a little bit in finals. had to fix a couple of the weirdnesses.
Yeah, an unfortunate oversight. I'm pretty sure there was a game or two during round play where Brahmatized and Ghost were on scout together, but yeah, in this first Cali game, Ghost had one of his worst performances of the tournament. And I partially just think it's because Dill, Death Knight, and Sweets all had such an incredible attack on the second floor to open that game.
From red side? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime you walk around... Anytime you walk around the big box angles, you just got turned into Swiss cheese.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have a lot of regrets. I wish I had taken that with much more of like a turtle stance. But I went in there, got eaten alive, Ghost got eaten alive, and we got one of the most cool games of the tournament out of it, I think. Probably the coolest, actually, if I do say so myself.
The loss against Callier. Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite losses. I made some mistakes in the game that ended up having drastic consequences. And I definitely think that they did a lot of... you know what? If you want to hear about it, go look at one of our other videos. We already made one.
Absolutely. We do an hour-and-a-half review of the darn game.
Yeah, that game. Because there was... We had just switched into me playing heavy, and me and Joe had some uncomfortable synergies going on. Like, I needed to listen to Sergeant Tucker a little bit better. But we ended up just cleaning it up and then playing the next game. It was... That game took a little bit of recovery. The first part of the game, everybody was panicking. There was a lot of people just like feeling the nerves, flipping into the roster, having the expectations. And then when things weren't going super well because we were a little disjointed, there was a lot of panicking. People, I already said that, but like people were definitely starting to get into their heads. And the moment that Sergeant Tucker died, everybody kind of just went, "Oh shoot, it's actually going wrong," and started to refocus a little bit, which was really cool. I love when people refocus.
Yeah, I mean, it was finals, do or die time, and we really, ironically, it allowed us to really show what we were made of and why we were such a good team, lasting as long as we did in that game. The way we punched back. Great teamwork.
Yeah, I think Sergeant Tucker dies at like 9 minutes and 30 seconds or something.
Yeah. I'm watching the second game here. Because we...
oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Because we were not shaken. Your leadership was crucial. Just the way you shook us up, got us back in out of our heads, and we went back in there. We just ran it back. We didn't question anything. And Sergeant Tucker did not get shot one single time that second game in that victory. So that's pretty cool.
We used our maneuvers, you know. There needed to be accountability in order for us to move past it without having to get into the next game and like freak out. I think we did a really good job of being patient with each other and like forgiving, but there was definitely a situation where people needed to own up to the fact that they didn't hold their promise. Mental fragility ended up costing us a lot of really unfortunate situations. And when it was addressed and it was like the light was on it, everybody ended up coming together and being like, this isn't how I want to remember this.
I think from that point on, the tournament became a little bit of a flow state, at least for me. It all seemed to move very quickly and naturally. Like we as a team were becoming really one unit, all just in it together. That second game went really well. And I don't know about you, but the next few matches where Cedar knocked out Five Nights of Loveland and who fought valiantly in that game, by the way. It wasn't a smashing. I think they might have killed Meds out on one of them or gotten him very close to dead.
They were...
Yep, they killed Meds.
They were down
in finals.
They were down by a lot of points going into game 2. But
still just...
They did good.
Incredibly proud of them. And then, you know, Cedar City and Cali A going into their finals game, like I did not know who was going to come out. I think I would have put my money on Cali, but Cedar had quite the showing.
Slaughtermelon was playing his home arena and his best role. I think that if California was going to win that, they definitely needed to win the first game. Because they played red and then green, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they lost on red. And like philosophically speaking, I think that they had a lot of opinions about how to succeed. And when you commit to certain mindsets, a lot of times that alone can like affect your win percentage. And it was a night tournament, you know. There was definitely not a lot of prime hours for people to be like conscious of the decisions that they were making. But California played a great tournament just overall. I don't mean to just like be shitting on them, but like a lot of the ways that they responded to situations were a little uncharacteristic based on what round play had looked like, and also based on a lot of reputation. Like DK has always talked about, when you get to a tournament, you play the role that you're in throughout the whole tournament. Do not change anything. Just change gameplay. Focus on what needs to be done in order to win. And I think that I don't think that that's wrong. I think that part of having home field advantage is we're able to change our lineup however we want. But Cedar showed that you can completely change the strategy, and as long as you have a win condition and a plan, like it, you can kind of do it however you want. There's no right way. And when Cedar threw their second floor heavy curveball, the California team didn't respond correctly. They just tried to do what they were doing that was succeeding harder, and then that just kind of fed into the plan.
Yeah. Nope, I think that's fair, and honestly, I want to do a video where we review a lot of these Cali versus Cedar games because they're very interesting. But please continue.
They played really, really high level laser tag, and when you're at that really high level, a lot of times like those slight oversights where you're just like not having enough respect for certain things or having too much respect for certain things, if you're not on the money with where you're aiming with stuff like that, a lot of times it can really just blow up in your face. I think that they had a little bit too much confidence going into it for things to play out the way that they thought it was going to play out, and when it didn't play out that way, they tried to force it to play out the way that they wanted it to instead of adjusting to what was going on. So Caleb Slaughtermelon throughout the entire tournament was doing different things and was keeping himself flexible. Snuffles was doing the same thing. Snuffles was playing third floor, second floor, and the way that they attacked first floor was really unique. They committed 4 people to the bottom floor to just like kill you as fast as possible, using their resupply to kind of hang over the edges and just like pick people off on the sides.
Yeah, I really liked that.
It was really efficient. Like I don't necessarily think that was. I don't necessarily think that was a terrible choice. I don't have enough exposure to it to really say whether or not it's just like bad or if it's good. But there's always going to be opportunities whenever you commit resources to areas, and California Interpeace had their own priorities and they had their own lists of things that they felt like they needed to do. I'm not really sure why they made some of the choices that they made when they were like downstairs or upstairs, but they definitely, like Kodama specifically, showed a lot of ability to just like take over a game by just like pooping on the third floor throughout the entire event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't even think I refed these games. I think I was self-vetoed because I was just like, I'm not going to make good decisions. I don't trust myself to. I don't trust myself to ref this confidently because, like, if someone does make a mistake and have a penalty, it is going to be really impactful because these games are going to be really close. So I let the Syracuse guys do it. Those guys are experienced too. You can have it.
Yeah. There's lots of experienced refs in there.
Tons of them. My boy Disco Stew. Shout out Disco Stew. Mm-hmm. Refed every finals game, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I pretty much agree with that analysis. At the end of the day, it was like very sound fundamentals versus active innovation. And that is ultimately what... It was one of the big pieces. I mean, I'm really proud of that Cedar City team, even just having like Chaser and Metalface stepping up to be part of the innovation, playing their roles, and honestly punching up at some big name players.
Oh, dude, Metalface played so good.
The strategy that they came up with was geared specifically to be a counter to the standard Loveland meta. So when Cali rolled in with the meta 2 games in a row without changing anything. Like it I don't know. They just didn't play with that upside. They played very safe, and it did not pay off for them. So it works really well for the storyline. As much as Caleb doesn't like to hear Scythe talk about the villain arc, Caleb makes it all the way to finals to play us in our home arena for the championship. And that was an intense moment. I remember us having a team meeting before the game. There was a rush, a tingle of energy flowing through the team. Sergeant Tucker pointed out the strategy that Cedar City was likely to employ, and we used our very first different opening of the whole tournament here. We decided to send both of our 3 hits to the top floor to try to surround and cut off Slaughtermelon, who was soaking up all the attention, and try to get a resupply upstairs before Snuffles could barge through and send him downstairs.
It was a combination effect because we were also mitigating damage on the second floor. Part of the reason why heavy on second floor was working is because if there's a commander there to just not do anything and take shots from the heavy, your heavy fighting 2 scouts and a commander is going to make a lot more points than the heavy that's just shooting the commander.
I definitely give a lot of credit to Brahmatize throughout these finals games, since he had never practiced playing on the second floor as a scout. And it's just an opening, right? Scouts end up all over the place during a complex game. But Brahmatize just went in and solo fought Snuffles for a minute there just to buy us time to get our setup. And that was crucial. Although I don't think we're talking we haven't mentioned so far perhaps one of the true MVPs of our finals game. Somebody's downstairs in the first minute getting 7 medikits.
I mean, before I get onto that, I really want to give credit to Simply Okay, who had to face some hard stuff during this entire event. There was when Slaughtermelon used to play with us, there was kind of this like bitterness because it's hard to play against someone who really just thinks that they're better than you and treats you like it. The relationship between Simply Okay and Slaughtermelon was kind of a rivalry, and I'm really proud of Simply Okay for kind of floating away from those types of feelings throughout the week, because especially during the first day, you can definitely tell he was he was definitely trying to prove some stuff. Which is what Nats is for, right? It's not like that's a bad thing, but setting those types of like feelings aside and committing to the idea that we're playing for the team and I'm just trying to like do my best is really hard. And he did it. This game was really like where a lot of that. So the finals match against Cedar City was kind of where a lot of that really materialized, I feel like. And he was resetting the crap out of him. Mm-hmm. Simply Okay was holding down all of the areas that Caleb was trying to steal by waiting for the enemy team to make a mistake. And if you just don't make mistakes, it doesn't work out very well. Which is hard to do. You have to not make a mistake. It's really easy to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So good job. Shout out Simply Okay.
Yeah, I think everyone on the team deserves a shout out, like and subscribe. Let's talk about Simply Okay then first. Everyone contributed to these finals games, of course, but and you'll hear me talk about this with my interview with Simply Okay. I think one of the most crucial matchups of the whole finals event, especially the second game, comes down to Slaughtermelon versus Simply Okay and Sergeant Tucker. Because the only reason we were able to make, well, let me put it the other way. The reason that the Cedar City strategy works is that a commander is able to break in and bully out the resupply while your heavy is bullying around on the second floor. Essentially, you're allowing the enemy 3 hits to do some damage to your 1 hits, but you are going to ultimately win by shoving the enemy team downstairs. This strategy is contingent, like you said, upon no mistakes from the resupply, or contingent upon them making at least 1 mistake. You see it in Five Nights at Loveland versus Cedar City. Azra resets Slaughtermelon 3 different times all by herself, and then eventually runs out of resets. And then Slaughtermelon pushes them all downstairs. In these games, Slaughtermelon goes right for the throat. He goes right for Sergeant Tucker, and Simply Okay and Sergeant Tucker work together to reset Slaughtermelon over and over and over again, while our 3 hits shove their team downstairs. If they weren't capable of doing that, if our resupply weren't capable of doing that, our team could have gotten pushed downstairs in either of these games.
It would have gotten messy. A little bit of chaos.
Tons of it.
Everybody's running around.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that speaks to the synergy of our resupply, Simply Okay and Sergeant Tucker, the patience, the meta, and the micro and the macro. And it took a lot of humility to play that role. They were total supports for the team. And I've definitely tried to make sure they get the credit and the glory of these finals games as much as anybody. Except, obviously, Ghost, who I am trying to say is potentially I would say is the MVP of the first game, because getting 11 medic hits in finals is out of this world. I would not be surprised if the second highest number of medic hits in a finals game is something like 7 or 8.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to
11 medic hits.
It's hard for me to even conceptual. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Why is a scout going in and getting 11 medic hits? Anyways, like that shouldn't be happening, first of all. And maybe that's just a symptom of the way that our plan was just like working really well. Because our opening came out and we were doing a ton of damage just immediately. Mm-hmm. And we weren't really, it's not that we weren't receiving damage, but like the damage that we were dealing was a lot more impactful. We shut Snuffles off by removing all of the resources for him to dump shots into. Mm-hmm. And then when they committed to trying to take the 3rd floor, we ended up putting them in a position where they needed to overcommit resources because we had already committed our resources to that situation, which left a lot of exposure to 1v1s. And 1v1s are terrible when you are a medic because you only get a couple of those. 20 actually, not including nukes. You only get a couple. That's in laser tag. That is not very much. Not a lot of lives. And Ghost is really good. He's very fast, and he has a lot of energy. So when he's just not getting tired, right? While he's doing all these things, he's very fit. Mm-hmm. His ability to be relentless ended up paying off really well for us in this, like, just this entire tournament, right? He was kind of given some keys because, like, a lot of the way that Cedar had been playing for most of the week, Meds was a very active medic. He was blasting a lot of people. And I think a lot of that was just due to their hierarchy, the way that their social dynamic was working, because Chaser was a rookie, and any time where you have someone experienced battling against people who are also experienced, a lot of times they get really focused on one idea, right? And I think that a lot of the way that they view, like the Utah players view laser tag is very different from us. So their emphasis on keeping the ammo up, for example, is significantly higher. I don't really disagree with the philosophy, but like, I don't need to get into this. Never mind. Retract. They put themselves in positions where Ghost was able to just kind of play however he wanted, and that was really cool. Getting to see him really like embrace that just like high damage, high efficiency was really fun. I don't even know how many times he shot 3 hits that game. I think it was a lot of meds.
Yeah, lots of meds for sure. Yeah. For Ghost and Brahmatized, the way that our team shifted worked really well against Cedar City in particular, because Cedar City tends to abandon their resupply to go full throttle with both 3 hits. Like, there were so many times when Snuffles and Slaughtermelon were trying to pincer you in the resupply. Normally, I think it's usually our meta that the commander tends to be the forward attacking unit, while the scouts are more area control. We had a lot of lineups like that. For example, in round play, if you and Loki were the scouts, and it was like Ghost or simply okay on commander, that would be much more that typical scenario. But our finals lineup kind of threw it on its head, because Brahmatized and Ghost were essentially relentless attack dogs in my mind. They were just gunning for the medic from the beginning. If one of them wasn't attacking the medic, the other one was. And I on commander honestly did a lot more hanging back, trying to help fight off the 3 hits, targeting scouts who were just kind of lingering on the second floor. There was definitely like a point or two where you need some resupply, and I was just like running out, being a tank, soaking up a little attention for you. That first game, I definitely did. I think I had some of the least like general impact on the game. Everybody played their roles super well. Second game was a little more smooth, just kind of ran the way we needed it to.
It worked out. Red side's pretty forgiving.
Yeah.
We definitely, I mean, it wasn't like they just rolled over and died in the first game.
Not at all.
Caleb had probably the best nuke cancel of all time.
Oh yeah. Super heroic.
I
was honored to be part of it.
Yeah, great.
Yep. No, it was awesome. I'm totally fine with it now.
Metal face.
It helps that we won, you know.
Tapping me in the shoulder, and then Slaughtermelon coming around and getting the nuke cancel is going to be burned into my memory for a while, I think.
Funny enough, I've already kind of moved on from it, so don't worry, man.
The problem is that Ghost was just tearing up the back line the entire time it was going on. Anytime it is third floor against second floor, usually the third floor is going to have a easier time scoring a lot of points, just because of the way that the layout caters to the third floor. And the access points that they were using to try and get a foothold on the third floor, just like, it was not very forgiving. I remember Ghost coming up the ramp and showing his phaser to a bunch of people and just going, "I'm killing them."
You can totally see it too when he comes up. Yeah, it's in there somewhere. I'll find it. A couple more people that need to be mentioned just in these games. Like, one, Sergeant Tucker had to make some extremely precise tactical movements. There were a number of board flips. There was a time when he separated entirely from the team into the closet to maintain his lives while the whole top floor was under duress. He and Simply Okay remained very in sync. And what I love about Sergeant Tucker is that he knows when it's time to hide and he knows when it's time to be out in the middle fighting everybody. Like, he knows exactly when the time is to make that mental switch. And he was contributing.
Yeah, dude, it's like the Spidey sense. It's crazy. You can just smell it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like, oh yeah, this is not where I want to be.
Again, his training all throughout our careers really, like, it really showed. Especially here in the finals. Playing Resupply and Loveland is no joke, and he did it spectacularly. And I want to make sure we also credit you, man, that you came in with this heavy, or oftentimes you were fighting both 3 hits. Just being patient, being stable, finding good opportunities to help out from the second floor for the people on the first floor. Like, I would say that honestly, your finals game as heavy wasn't particularly flashy. It was just really solid. It was exactly what the team needed.
I was trying to play aggressive and like put them in positions where they felt like they needed to make drastic decisions. And I mean, it worked out, but I was trying to be really flexible and just work with Sergeant Tucker as much as I could, because he was my first choice, as we kind of talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. Playing with Sergeant Tucker it's especially after COVID, it had really transformed for me. He was kind of my go-to guy because I really trusted him. And he understood how to like play with me when I was getting aggressive. He understood how to direct me if he needed me to do things that I wasn't doing, you know? Mm-hmm. And those ended up helping out a lot.
You know, I was thinking about it, like, that's the roommates right there. You 3 all used to room together.
It is the roommates, dude. That's the apartment.
We can rename the fortress to the apartment now.
The apartment. The studio, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
We got some good stuff going on. I don't think that any of my heavy games during finals were particularly flashy. I don't think I was doing too many things that were just like out of this world, you know. I was just really focused on putting the heat out on these guys because they have a history of trying pretty hard against me, and I've lost a lot of games. I've lost a lot of games, and a lot of these guys have given me a lot of those losses, and I was trying to
trying to finally get it back. And
I don't think anybody was stopping me, though, to be honest. I think that even if we were put in a situation where it's like we lose a match in finals or something, I'm pretty sure that there was just going to be another layer of adjustments done.
Mm-hmm. We had them ready, you know. There were definitely options to give us more advantages and surprise the opponent. But all that to say, like, as the game unfolded with their extremely aggressive maneuvers and openings, like, you played it very well. It was stable. The team was safe. We never lost top floor in either of the finals games.
Yeah, dude, that place is mine.
Now, I remember people in the community may have had some disagreements about putting me on commander. I'm definitely not. I'm probably like the least flashy commander player at our site, to be honest. But statistically, it just made sense. And that's ultimately why we advocated for it. I have a stupid high win rate on commander at our site. And I've played enough games to where it's not some anomaly. Like, I'm good at being where I'm supposed to be. I play pretty sound commander. And even in that first game, like with the nuke getting canceled, it was too important for me to get phased. Like, I needed to quickly recover and go get another nuke. So that's what I did. And I'm just very thankful that I had such an incredible team where I didn't need to. Thankfully, we had enough damage done. I didn't need to carry all that much weight at all. Like, I had to just try to focus on stopping the 3 hits from breaking through to our resupply.
I tried to. I was pretty committed to trying to open up ways for you to just like have an easier time.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely remember you being in big box and being faced with a lot of choices. Like, I can see Thunder aiming at me. He's about to put 3 into me, but I can see Dallin about to run in on Luke. And if I shoot Snuffles instead of shooting Thunder, then Luke is going to be able to come up and go beat him up. And like, I think that you used all of those opportunities to the fullest because of how experienced you are. You have a very deep understanding of when you have advantages and how to use them. Mm-hmm. And I felt like you played great. I don't really care what other people in the community think about whether or not you should play commander, because you're goated with the sauce. You have all the shots, and you have a very, very distinct macro game that makes it so that it's really easy for you to set yourself up for the future and like let them have their pretty hard situations. I mean, I don't know, man. Get that nuke cancel, I don't think was your fault. I think that was more on us as your team to like not let that happen.
I don't know, man. It was all of us. Like, in reality, I knew how far ahead we were. I was going for a haymaker, you know. I wanted the knockout punch, and if I had just been a little more like patient, I would have easily gotten that nuke off. It was trying to run and get it off right away. But like, I don't regret it. I probably just should have used a little more discernment. And I appreciate you saying all that. It's really not. I mean, I've been criticized recently for putting too much emphasis on athleticism with certain players, but I'm here saying, like, I'm like a really unathletic commander. I just know where to stand. I know when to push in. I really bank on teammates giving me advantages and working alongside them, but I think that's how you play commander well, or any position well. I don't do solo carry. That doesn't work very well. Not in a super competitive environment anyway. I had scouts who were relentlessly attacking the medic at all times. I had a heavy who was fighting the 3 hits. I just used my resources and I farmed up a ton of points, especially the second game. I was popping off. I was just mowing through them because I knew exactly where they were all standing. And you guys were putting them in nice little boxes for me to run in and get them. So, a successful tournament. We won. And, you know, after we won, a bunch of us were celebrating by the doorway. Where were you? I was calling out for you for a minute. I'm sure you were having your own moment, you know?
I was still kind of processing. I walked over to Blue Base and I just like stared at the wall for a second. Contemplated reality. Just tried to like soak in the moment. It wasn't that I didn't want to celebrate. I was just like feeling a lot of big feelings.
I get it. I don't blame you at all. But you might be the only teammate here who isn't really captured on camera, so I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm out here playing hide and go seek.
Yeah, bro.
I was very... I don't know. I didn't really feel anything for the first, like, 5 or 10 minutes for sure. There was no... I was pretty void. I think there was definitely a feeling of, like, just numbness, you know? I don't know if you experienced that when we won, but I definitely was like, whoa, this is weird.
You tell me about what you experienced first.
Oh, it was a very numb feeling. I felt like finally, you know, there was a finally in there somewhere. And then I was back to being awkward. It was perfect.
Dude, I was so happy for you.
I know.
Go ahead.
For me?
Yeah, dude.
I was happy for you too.
I mean, all throughout, like you've been the de facto leader. Oftentimes I remember you over the years talking about the backpack, you know, feeling like you had to carry the backpack for us. And I was so glad that we were able to put together a team that supported you really well. I mean, I felt like you deserved it. You had really worked for it, and you always had the talent to be a world champion. And you stuck it out to build your site up and finally earn it really on your own laurels. So, proud of you, dude.
Thanks, dude. I don't know. I think that a lot of the backpack talk was me just coping about X, Y, or Z. Mad 'cause bad. You know how it is.
Oh, I do know how it is. I've been there.
I do think that some of the honorable mentions for threatening players in the tournament, Odin's Fist came out and played fucking crazy laser tag. I do remember that we eventually pivoted and decided that having me play commander against them was necessary because they had a weird spike where Aiden, Snowflake, and Disco Monkey had this. Sorry, Odin's Fist. I'm out here name dropping everybody. We know like a crazy person.
We know we're on some first name basis. That's okay.
Odin's Fist, Snowflake, and Disco Monkey had some crazy synergy going on, and they were able to deal really, really large amounts of damage really fast. They had a really clear plan on how to take the third floor and then how to use it to transition later. And Odin's Fist was a threat, dude. Same with Snuffles. Snuffles was definitely a little like overshadowed for us because we were pretty focused on Slaughtermelon as far as like threat levels go. But Snuffles ended up playing, I think, his best tournament ever. He was very consistent. He was doing a lot of stuff all the time, and all of it was benefiting his team constantly. Everything he did was just hardcore. I didn't mean to cut you off, but how did you feel?
No. Odin's Fist and Snuffles were incredible competitors. Odin's Fist shoves our team off the 3rd floor. Just an incredible timing. I mean, I could
can't
go
believe
on.
you would do that, Odin's Fist.
Could definitely go on, you know. And I'm truly just honored at all the people that did come out for our big tournament. People knew we were the favorites, and many people still came out to compete, support us, be part of the event we were throwing on. And it meant the world to us. We'd been working so hard for this for so long, and having the chance to truly compete in a serious tournament, to be taken seriously, it really validates the victory a lot more. And you know, I hope that what people gave for this tournament can come back to them in other forums and other tournaments down the road. I hope other sites get to experience the journey that we've gotten to experience. You know, to actually work their way up and fight for that belt. Really earn it.
Did we earn it? No Brisbane team.
Dude, Brisbane took lower than last. They didn't show up. That's what I tell myself.
Can't take lower than...
Like I said earlier, I wish that more people, like kind of the West Coast crowd, had come out for this tournament, but it's still a legitimate victory. It was still some extremely hard teams to fight against. I'm very proud of us.
We played against the world champions. It was cool.
Yes, we did.
We did our best. And I do think there was I do think there was high level competition present.
Yeah, 1,000%. I'm proud of the B team too, by the way. Just the fact that those kids took 4th place. You almost take it for granted, but like defeating Syracuse and LAPD and even the experienced players on St. George, like, this was no joke. How significant is it that they came in and took 4th decidedly? They dropped 1 game to Syracuse.
I do think that Syracuse team got kind of, for lack of a better term, they broke their arm. They did not. That roster was mostly the same as the 2015 roster that they sent out, and I do think that if the team that played in 2024 played against that 2015 lineup, they would have won. Cody's really good, especially in Loveland. He's got a lot of practice. And do not pass go, the absolute legend.
Mm-hmm. No, they are really good.
The fantastic Grandmaster Fox. Jackal, who was on their A team in 2021. Like, pretty stacked roster. And I mean, I don't know that like there's a level of significance that I don't know how to compare you know, from like the beginning of our road to the end of the road, right? Because like I say the end of the road to the current road, the beginning of the road to the right now road.
Mm-hmm.
I think specifically the Rook showed moments of brilliance that the rest of his team probably just don't really have access to. And I mean, they all had their own moments in their own ways, but the Rook was a huge factor as to why they were able to do the things that they were going to do. Because at a certain point, like, your commander's always going to do what your commander's going to do. Your resupplier always going to do what your resupplier going to do. Those variables from the scouts create a lot of really small advantages in several different moments, and those things add up. And the Rook was one of the main pioneers of a lot of their random growths that they had throughout the week. Because like Judoku also did a lot of that. Like, he was really good about floating in between the offense and the defense and kind of just being where he needed to be every single time, which gave a lot of stability to them. And then on the flip side, that gave a lot of wiggle room for the offense to make some mistakes. And when the offense can make mistakes, they can try all sorts of weird stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many times the Rook broke in and just like put a bunch of people down and got a bunch of medic hits on resets. Like, but it happened enough that he was able to transition that into habits that he was able to take into the rest of his games in the future. Because like he still plays that way. Mm-hmm. And it still works.
Yeah. I'm so impressed with him and all of them. You know, this is honestly a good... You said the end of the road, end of the story, and I think I would call it the end of that chapter of Loveland. As we've gone through, we talked about like those first early years until we won our first West Coast, and then the site breaking up, the rebuild. And this was the era of our first championship, dude. The story for you and me, you know, that's one thing, but the story really is about everyone at Loveland. All these people that have come in and out of the story. Brahmatized has been with us for years. Simply Okay, Sergeant Tucker, Loki, Ghost. They've been around, you know. And all these new kids as well. I mean, Stricka's been around since like age 10. It's crazy. And who knows what's coming next? You know, you and I have talked, like, I would love to still be able to come out and compete from time to time. We'll see. My attitude towards Nats is going to significantly shift, I can tell you that. Because I didn't have as much fun as I would have wanted. It was a lot of effort. You were asking me how I felt after Nats? Truth was, dude, like, playing in Nats was really... It was terrifying, I think is probably the best word to describe it. I had to overcome a lot of fears. So much pressure was put on me. But it taught me to posture myself in a pretty magnificent way in order to make it actually happen. And the things that I've learned playing Space Marines 5 have translated into my everyday life. As we often say, like, it helped us learn how to be men, how to love people better, stand up to bullies, have strong values. And I hope we can pass that on to the next generation of players, whatever that looks like. whatever we've
they're gonna be jerks.
whatever we've done right to help pass that along and to help people avoid mistakes that we have made, which have been hurtful to people. This journey has been really personal for me. I had a moment where, I was literally like out in a field, and for those who don't know me like very well, I'm a Christian, and I was out just like alone in a desolate place on a hike, and I told God, like, I want to win this. Please help me win this. What do I need to do? I literally prayed about it. And I don't know. First of all, this game is not more important than the people, I think was something that was made pretty clear to me by him. But I relied on him a lot throughout the games. I was praying. I did the cross before every single game I played. I try to keep in context just like the higher powers at work here, that we're all here to love each other, that we're all friends at the end of the day in this game. And yet we go into that arena and it gets at you, man. It gets at the heart of who you are in some primal way. To go in there and fight to be a champion, it takes everything, man. I don't know if I'm going to ever come back with the same ferocity I did for this tournament, but I know there's lots of people in line behind us that want their shot. And I hope that Loveland takes many more trophies home. I'd love to be a part of that. Whether that's on the field or as a coach or just as a friend.
I love you, Luke.
I love you, man.
I'm sorry that this was such an arduous journey.
Well, it was for you too, and everyone on our team. But shows how much the belt means,
I guess. I mean, I definitely made it harder than it has to be in a lot of situations.
Well, so did I.
I think that it is really. I was partially joking when I said they're going to be jerks. The new generation is going to have to go through a lot of the stuff that we went through.
100%.
Facing conflict and dealing with adversity, having to force yourself to grow in a direction that you don't necessarily know where you're going to end up. But the entire time having to also like maintain passion without getting like absorbed by ego and expectation. They're going to be jerks. They're going to have their moments. And it is all going to be okay. They're going to be able to bounce back from stuff like that, and they're going to continue to grow and change. Eventually, they're going to be 30. Their brains are going to be done, out of the oven, frontal lobe fully developed.
Crazy.
And maybe, just maybe, we'll have a 2034 Loveland Internationals again.
Man, wouldn't that be crazy?
Wouldn't that be crazy? They'll have plenty of opportunities to try and win the belt in away arenas and stuff like that, but I think that in order to have a lot of those building blocks and a lot of those foundations, you have to be exposed to a lot of situations that you're just not comfortable in. And that can be really hard. That was one of the hardest things for me. Like, you don't like this. Syracuse? This is madness.
Yeah. I mean, we laugh about all the times that our car broke down, the long drives, the tornadoes, and the
only reason it's funny is
really
because it was terrible.
sketchy situations. But like, we fought with each other. We resented and hated each other. We cried and got injuries. Felt totally
So many
disheartened,
injuries.
treated unfairly, yelled at. Yeah, I mean, frankly, there was a lot on the journey that really sucked. But what kept us coming back was, one, I think, just like a stubborn competitiveness. Like, we wanted to actually get better. And we knew that each time we went through stuff like that, every loss, every tournament just kept getting us closer and closer. And I wouldn't have done it all if I didn't love our site. I was always pro Loveland, you know. I even though we were all growing and had a lot of flaws, like, you guys were my brothers and my sisters. And I love all of you. Even if I'm not competing, I want to be around to just help these other friends of ours grow and keep becoming amazing human beings. I think Space Marines, the way I see it now, is ultimately it's like what'd you call it? Like a pressure cooker. Like, it's a place you go to simulate combat, and you really learn a lot about yourself. Yeah, I don't regret it. It's one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. I'm thankful to God for it, and I hope that I can glorify Him, that I can love people very, very well and put them above the game as I continue to just be a presence in the community. That's where my heart's at. I've got to keep working on that, because I don't always do a very good job. But, you know, I hope our mistakes help other people feel like they can make mistakes and get better from it.
We worked really hard. And it's going to be okay, no matter what happens in the future. I'm pretty not afraid. We're going to go to all sorts of nats. 2025 nats. It's going to be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to play some laser tag. We're definitely going to have to build some players up. And we'll try our best.
Dude, all the seeds we're planting, they're going to sprout, you know. They're already sprouting.
Gonna have some trees soon.
Forest, man. So let me ask you. This is the end of this chapter of Loveland. You're going out to Brisbane with 8 other Loveland players. What's next? Where's your head at?
So Ghost is moving to Florida. You're quote-unquote done with Nats.
I may be backtracking on that a little bit.
Sergeant Tucker is planning on playing in the future, but is unsure of when trips are going to be able to happen. Brahmatized is committed to playing members nights, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get him to travel. Loki never traveled, never will. I don't think that competitive laser tag is, especially a sport that you have to pay to go play. It is there's not a lot of incentive to put that time into that when you have other types of priorities, you know. So we'll see where life takes everybody and whether or not life brings them back. But the main focus is just going to be finding a new identity and trying to put resources into that identity, put people in places that they want to be and where they want to grow. I'm far from done. I think I'm going to play for the rest of my life, probably. I'm going to be one of those old people, potentially even on podcasts.
Ooh.
Going, nah, these kids, they don't know. Could be fun. In the short term, I am excited to hang out with my friends and play some laser tag.
Me too, my friend. I think on that note, that kind of brings us to where we are today and where we should probably wrap up, man.
Shout out to our 200 subscribers. Thanks for subscribing. If you're watching this and you have not already liked and subscribed, what are you doing?
If you're 6 hours into the Loveland story, you're a subscriber already.
You better be.
We love you all. We really appreciate the relationships we've got to build in this community. Fear Turkey, if there's anything that you would have anybody take away from this podcast, what would it be?
Stay curious. Keep innovating. If you want to get better, you have to keep being creative and focus on trying new things. And then when you find things that work, solidify it. Just keep practicing. It's okay to lose. Try your best. If someone beats you at your best, it's fair enough. You got me. And above everything, leading with love. Try your absolute best to fertilize the community with all of the love manure. Then the trees are going to grow.
And then you'll have a forest of players that will help you win lots of trophies.
Ideally. They got us one.
All right. Give the people a goodbye. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks everyone for listening.
Goodbye, everybody. Don't poop your pants.
Please.
Please.
What did that have to do with the Loveland story?
Don't poop your pants?
Don't poop your pants?
That's been my goodbye for years now. I always tell people not to poop their pants. It's like a well wish.
It's good advice, honestly.
It's like break a leg, but don't poop your pants.
Yeah. All right. Okay, don't poop your pants, people.
Don't poop your pants.